Yep, the job market is cooked. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad out there. Um, if you're anything like me, unemployed, uh, you've been applying to jobs a lot, and you probably noticed things are a little weird. Me too. I've noticed this as well. I've been applying for jobs for 11 months now, almost a year, and it's been rough. I have probably applied to 700 plus jobs at this point. Granted, I get a lot of interviews. I would say my interview rate is probably like 5% or so, which is actually not that bad. From what I've heard from a lot of people, that's like at least average, if not above average. That's actually pretty good. I've heard some people who say they applied to like 100 jobs and they never hear anything. I usually at least hear at least one or two interview requests for every like 20 jobs that I applied to. So that's I guess I have slightly better odds, but yeah. Anyway, so I've applied to like 700 plus jobs in the last year, and I've gotten zero offers, and um, I've gotten zero offers, and I've done many interviews, and I've still got zero offers. I've probably interviewed with 40 or so unique companies, but I couldn't tell you how many actual number of rounds of interviews that I've done because it's sort of all over the place. But if I had to say, it's obviously at least 40, probably closer to like 60, like 55 to like 75, somewhere in that range if I had to ballpark it. Um, so I've done all these interviews. I probably answered the "tell me about yourself" question like a million times at this point. Um, at this point, it's pretty rough out there. I have college experience. Well, technically, I didn't graduate, but that's a whole story. That's a whole story. I don't want to get into it. We don't have time for that. Okay. I'll give you the very, very short version of my history. Okay. Here's my timeline. So, first of all, I'm applying to support engineering roles, primarily not directly software developer, software engineer roles, but there is software development work in those support engineering roles. Just sort of depends. Some jobs lean a little bit more support heavy, some jobs are a little bit more developer heavy. So it's kind of a spectrum. And so the whole idea of support engineering is that you're kind of the bridge between like client success, like client operations, and engineering and product, kind of like those two worlds. You're like a mix between those two things. You have skills in both, and that is me. So I make a pretty good candidate, and this is probably why I keep getting interviews, although not with everybody. Um, because so my background is like I used to work at call centers. I've worked at call centers for like 5 or 6 years now. Well, not now, but 5 or 6 years in total. And then when I was working in call centers, I realized I have more potential than this. I really like the technical side of my job, and I want to go deeper into that. So um, I went to school for computer science, and I did that for about 2 or 3 years. I started working on programming projects while I was, bored in my general ed classes, taking like calculus 1 and 2, and English literature and whatever. Right, so I was like, I want to go ahead and work on what my degree is about. Right, I'm tired of waiting. So I started working on programming projects, and I actually completed my first project. And after I completed my first project, I had an idea for the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And I just kept executing, and I got like 2 or 3 years into school, and by this point, I had like a whole GitHub repository of like 30 some projects under my belt. Some of which were just like weekend projects, some of which were a little bit longer term, but not super long, not super, super complex projects at the time. Um, but yeah, pretty cool and pretty high level for someone with my like experience level. Like someone who's a computer science student, I was working on some pretty cool things. Um, this was also back before AI, so this was when that actually was kind of impressive and not like, what it is now, where someone could just vibe code almost every single one of my projects that I did within like a weekend. So this was back when that actually kind of mattered and projects actually made a difference. So anyway, long story short, so I was 2 or 3 years into school. I had all these projects. I had school experience. although not a completed degree yet. But I was like, I should probably apply to internships. I should probably get an internship. So I did. And while I was applying to internships, I also applied to jobs. And so I didn't think anything of it. I got an offer for an internship. That was really cool. But then, like 2 weeks later, I got an offer for this job that I interviewed with that I didn't really think much of. And I was like, holy crap, this is like my first real tech job. Like, I should do this. I should take this opportunity. I don't know when this opportunity is going to come again. Like, obviously, it will happen eventually, but I should take it. I should go for it. So I was also going to school online. So I thought at the time, like, I could probably just take this job and still keep doing my classes. But as I got further into that job, I had to make a decision as to which one I wanted to pursue. Either I leave this job, go back to my parents' house, give up my tech job and just try to continue school, or I just drop out of school and maybe come back to it later on, or maybe not. And I just continue my learning on the job with real work experience on my resume and just kind of go from there. So that's what I did. And it was a big decision. It wasn't as quick as I made that sound. I spent a long time thinking about it. And, I talked to a lot of people and I made my decision. And I don't regret it, actually, because if I had stayed in school, I would be graduating this year in this month, actually. And I would have no job experience. Maybe an internship here and there, but it doesn't count nearly as much as actually working at a job doing real coding work and real, like, solving real JIRA tickets, working in real production environments, querying the database, doing log analysis, working with various APIs, seeing how real web apps are developed in today's world with real cloud infrastructure and Docker containers and all these things. Like, so much exposure to things I had no even idea about that I didn't even know existed. Right? So it was massively very helpful. Anyway, enough about me, though. Enough about my rambling here. But so I did that for about 2 years. And then I got laid off because the company was laying off a metric crap ton of people. And eventually I was just on the chopping block. They were doing it kind of like one at a time. So, I kind of knew the writing was on the wall for me because my particular role didn't really make a lot of sense when the company starts downsizing, because my role was kind of like being the mediator between these two big giant teams of the client success team, talking with the customers, getting their feedback, surfacing issues, production incidents, all that stuff. And then the engineering team who are working on new features, maybe they're working on bugs, but they can't really communicate it that well to the client success team as to A, what they're working on, why they're working on it, but also B, they just, everyone speaks these different languages, right? I mean, the engineering team, they're all like logical, analytical people, and the client success team, they're all working off of vibes and, emotion and this isn't me trying to insult either of them. It's like, it's kind of like it's like the theater kids versus like the STEM kind of kids, these are two different worlds. So my job was kind of like, okay, let me step into both these arenas because I've done both of these jobs. Like I said, I worked at call centers. I was doing frontline customer service for like 5 or 6 years, and even like tier 2 level positions and stuff like that. So it was my job to know how to translate what clients are asking for into actionable steps for the development and product teams to take in that data and figure out, or, well, not really, I guess it's data, but take in that feedback and produce results. And it was also my job to be able to take things from the engineering side and translate that back to the clients and tell them, hey, sorry, we can't work on this thing that you really wanted because it's just not on our roadmap, or sorry, there's this bug going on. Let me explain how the bug works and why, whatever I need to say. But I need to be able to translate. That's a big part of tech support. And so anyway, very long story short, I worked there for 2 years and then I got laid off. And so I've been job hunting ever since. So I've been trying to get into more support engineering roles. But unfortunately, I've done many, many interviews and unfortunately no offers yet. So a couple things. I don't want to make this video super long. I just want to share my thoughts. I've tried to record this like 3 times now, and every time I end up recording for like half an hour to an hour long. And I'm like, nobody's going to watch all this. Like, I just need to shut the hell up. Um, so let's just get right into it. Like I said, I've applied to 700 plus jobs at this point. I've had interviews with like 40 plus companies. Many times that, that I've done interviews, I will go all the way to the final round or like pretty far before getting let go out of the interview, like rejected from the pipeline basically. So I'm getting pretty far. When I first started doing these interviews, I was not getting very far. And I've since tweaked my resume a lot. That has helped me a lot. Not lying on the resume, but just emphasizing the points that people actually want to see for these kinds of roles and not just whatever I think, like whatever I thought sounded good. Like, so kind of reading the room, knowing your audience, speaking their language, that kind of thing. So that's helped me a ton. The other thing that's helped me a lot is just doing interviews more and more and more, because now I can talk about myself pretty like well at this point. I can answer nearly every question that they throw at me with complete 100% calmness and certainty. And when people say, when people throw curveballs at me, it doesn't really bother me that much anymore. Also, this is sort of a dark point, but because I've been rejected so many times and at so many different stages, I just expect rejection now. Like whenever I go into an interview, I just expect it to end up in a rejection, which sounds really dark, but I will say that this has helped me a lot because it means I'm not like putting so much pressure on every interview. Like, oh my God, I've been rejected like 50 times. This has to be it. I'm running low on my money. I gotta get this job. Like, I'm not doing that anymore. Cause at this point I'm like, it's not going to work out anyway, as bad as that sounds, but that's just how crap the whole situation is. And I'm not the only one dealing with this. There's been so many things I've seen at this point of people in this exact same position like me. And it's rough out there. So anyway, yeah, so that's some things that have helped me, but despite that, I still don't have any offers. I've had a lot of interviews that just end with internal candidates getting hired. I've had a lot of interviews that end after the recruiter call, which is usually round one, where the recruiter will pass my resume off to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager will say, no thanks, And that happened to me a lot more early on, but doesn't happen to me nearly as much now, like almost never now. But it does still happen sometimes, which is fine. Sometimes I'm just not exactly the profile that they're looking for. I think companies are really being weird about hiring right now. I think, first of all, we're seeing, like, I feel really bad for anyone trying to get a software developer job right now. There's one reason why I haven't been trying to get a software developer job, even though I have the qualifications for it, because I did a lot of that kind of work too, is because whenever I go to look at jobs, I don't see any software developer jobs. Like, it's all senior level jobs. There's no entry level or like junior or even mid-level jobs that much. Even if it is mid-level, it's like mid to high. Like, there's no just mid or low, you know what I mean? So I I I don't know. Nobody's hiring juniors right now. I have no idea how you would even, unless you have 5+ years of experience. I have no idea how you're getting a job right now. There's absolutely no way. I mean, I've looked at thousands of job openings at this point, probably thousands. I'm not even joking. And I hardly ever see an entry level software developer position. It is broken as shit right now. And there's probably a lot of reasons for that, right? I think, you know, well, I'm not going to waste time going into it. There's been many videos on this platform you can watch about why people aren't hiring entry level anymore. Economic videos from people much smarter than me. I'm not even going to try to weigh in on that. But that's one angle. The other thing is, like, I think companies are just getting so many applicants that, like, at this point, the job market is so flooded that unless you're like the most perfect unicorn candidate ever, good luck, I guess. I mean, I would reckon that most of my jobs that I've applied to have had hundreds, if not thousands, of other applicants. I'm lucky to even be getting to an interview stage. Half the time when I get rejected by jobs anymore, I don't even take it personally, because I'm like, they probably just didn't even see my resume, to be honest. Like, what I imagine happens is, like, so I imagine I'm a recruiter right now. Like, I post a job, I get like 1,500 people that have applied to it. I'm just going to do some keyword searches and try to like have the tools or AI or whatever, God forbid, score like the top 50 candidates that it thinks I should look at. And then I'm just going to select like check, 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 and select like 20 of them, give them all a call. And then I'm just, you know, once I get at least like 10 people to move forward or whatever the numbers are, I've never been a recruiter, but you know, whatever the numbers are usually, once I get those people in and we've already got the first round scheduled, boom, immediately just auto reject all the other like 1,400 people or well, probably obviously a lot more than that, but you know, just auto reject all of them, right? That's what I would do if I was a recruiter. I don't blame them at all for doing this. So half the time when I get so many rejections, it's like, they probably just didn't even see my resume, even though it says, while we were impressed with your qualifications, we've decided to move forward with other candidates who better meet our needs. I've seen that line, I don't even know how many hundreds of times at this point, but it doesn't bother me anymore. Although sometimes, I will say this, whenever I do get a rejection, I still always make it a point to go back and look at the job description again, if it's still up, if it's still posted somewhere. I go back and look at the job description and I'm like, you know, what can I learn from this? Like, was I really a good fit for this job when I applied? Sometimes I apply to like 10 jobs or 20 jobs in a day, and I just kind of like, sometimes I don't read it all the way through, you know, God forbid I'm tired or whatever, like, you know, so sometimes I go back and look at it, and sometimes when I do, I'm like, okay, I can see why they rejected me. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I don't see why they rejected me. Sometimes I do think it's just because they reject like all these other people without even looking at you. Yeah, dude, it's rough out there. I'm not going to ramble forever. I could make this video like an hour long of me just rambling of, you know, if you want me to make another video talking about all the stories I have of some really shitty interviews and crappy companies I've talked to, some horrible things I've seen in job descriptions, like, I could go on. That could be a whole other hour video I could make. Yeah, it's rough out there. It's really rough. As far as advice, I don't know, dude. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have a job. That being said, I will turn this video away from a lot of doomerism, and I do want to share some good things. So I always have at least 1 or 2 interviews in the pipeline. You know, I probably told my parents, because I had to move back with my parents, obviously, like, economy fucking sucks, and I don't have infinite savings, right? So I gotta secure my survival. So I had to move back with my parents. That's why my room back here is a mess, because it's all like all my shit. I just had to move and just put it in a corner somewhere, put everything in boxes and put it in a corner. Like, I don't have time to, you know, file this all away. I don't have I went from a whole apartment to myself to all back in one room, and I gotta just throw shit places. But anyway, I've told my parents now probably a million times, like, they, you know, they'll always ask me when they see me, which is funny. I live with my parents and I'm 29 years old. Like, it just feels crazy to me, but here we are, you know. But I'll see my parents and they'll, like, you know, they'll ask me, like, you have any interviews? You got anything going on? And I'm like, yeah, I have an interview with this company at this time on this day. And they're like, oh, cool. And I'll tell them about it. And then, you know, I'll get rejected or whatever. And then the next week, like, you have any interviews? Yeah, I have this interview with this company. And I feel like I'm just in deja vu, like, just endless, like, Groundhog Day, you know, like, just, yeah, I have this interview. Like, I feel like I always have an interview, but it never fucking leads anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, I've done this so many goddamn times, and it's horrible. It's a lot of, cause okay, you got to think about it this way. I know you're probably watching the video and you must be like, damn, this dude fucking sucks. He's done like 50 interviews and he still doesn't have a job. But, like, you have to think about it from a numbers game, right? If 1,500 people apply to a job, and I don't know the actual numbers, but let's say 30 people make it to round 1, that probably might be way too many, I don't know. But then 30 people make it to round 1, only a small percentage of those 30 people are actually going to make it just to round 2, because the hiring manager is going to look at 30 people, and they're going to say, okay, don't want that guy, don't want that guy, don't want that guy, don't want that guy. And they're just going to keep, or a girl, or, you know, they, them, whatever. And they're just going to cut all these people, right? So with each round, it's like a pyramid. It just gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you get to the one person that they hire, or 2 people, or however many they're hiring for the position. But just like 1 or 2 people at the top of the podium there, and we started with like 1,500. So imagine at every stage you have to be selected to the next round, and you could say one thing that screws you, and that could be it. I'll cut this video off here, basically, but I had an interview with this one company, HackerRank, actually it was. I did 4 rounds of interviews, and then I had one botched question because they asked me how I think AI should be used in the support industry, like in that domain. And I gave a very like AI skeptical answer where I told them like it was a very realistic answer. It was a very kind of balanced answer. Like I wasn't peddling AI and saying it was the most amazing thing in the world and it's going to cure cancer. But I also wasn't like being completely against AI either. I was just giving like a very like nuanced, balanced answer of like AI is really powerful, but you have to use it very responsibly. And I said there are some legal liabilities. I don't know that I really trust AI to talk directly to the clients right now. There's a lot of crazy things that AI can say and do that you can't control, and it seems very chaotic. You know, from a programming perspective, I really like to have very deterministic behavior in my code, and AI is such a wild card. And to put it right on the front lines of your customers, like, it's kind of crazy. And then she actually had some pushback with me on that. And, you know, I can tell this full story in another video if you'd like, but this was actually the one thing that caused me to get rejected. And I had 4 fucking rounds of interviews that I did with them. And guess what? There would have been like 4 more, even if I got through that round of like a behavioral, like cultural interview, a pair programming live, whatever interview, and God knows what else. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. But Jesus, I've had multiple interviews that lead to them hiring an internal candidate. I don't know if I said that already. I've had multiple interviews that end after round 1, end after round 2, round 3, whatever. I've had interviews where I had to reschedule it due to an emergency. I have to push it back by like a week, or maybe I get sick because God forbid I have an immune system. I have to push the interview back a week. And then by the time I actually get to the interview, they've already selected the next person for the next round. And I just get rejected by the time I try to catch up. I've had like, and that pisses me off because it's like, well, if you already have people in mind, why are you even, you know, stringing me along at this point? Same thing with the internal stuff. I've had so many interviews that just lead nowhere, and I've done so many at this point. I'm so tired of talking to people. I'm so tired of explaining my story over and over and over and over and over again. It's horrible. And I have like I said, I have years of experience in the industry. I have college experience, you know. I didn't fully finish my degree, but I did get pretty far, and I would wager nearly everything my degree would have taught me, I learned on the job anyway. So at this point, it's very irrelevant to even mention my degree, or lack of, I guess. You know, I've got years of frontline customer service, talking with people in very stressful situations, people yelling at me, people, you know, threatening to fire me or whatever, like trying to get me fired. Like I've had people tell me, you know, my mom should have aborted me or whatever. It's horrible, horrible stuff. Right? I've done all that. I've been in the front lines. I know how to handle that kind of pressure, that kind of stress, you know? And, yeah, I have all this experience. I've dealt with like business to business client interactions. I've done a lot of programming, of course, you know, database querying, API stuff, all kinds of stuff. But here we are, you know? Good luck out there. That's what I'm going to say. This job market fucking sucks. And with every company laying off people, it's just going to get more and more difficult because there's only so many roles to go around, and there's now an injection of thousands of new people in the workplace, or sorry, in the applicant pool trying to get jobs is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to shut up. I don't want to make this video super, super long. If you've been affected by this, as I imagine the majority, the vast, vast majority of people are, even if you're not in software, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Especially if you're not in software, I'd like to hear about how it's happening in other industries. If it's happening for you, what it looks like in your industry, if you have to deal with the multiple rounds of interviews that lead nowhere and all this bullshit, like, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Yeah, oh, before I end this video, real quick, I do want to mention, I was going to say this, but I kind of forgot what I was saying. But I actually do have interviews in the pipeline right now. I just did an interview last week with a company that, unfortunately, I think they are going to hire someone internally. I've done enough of these interviews now. I know how to pick up on these social cues. They mentioned that they have internal candidates, and the way that they mentioned it, I'm pretty sure they're going to go with the internal candidates. So again, I don't know why they were even interviewing me, but I did really, really well in my interviews. Like, we were laughing the whole time. We were having great conversations, but I don't think it was enough. If I had to give a percentage, I'd say I have like a 30% chance that I get that job, but that might even be too much. Maybe 20%, 80% that I don't get it. But anyway, so I had that one. I had an interview with a company yesterday, and that one went pretty well, but it was just a recruiter call. So, I mean, I don't really think too much of it. I've done a million of these. But if I can land the next interview, I should do pretty well. The next one is going to be a technical round where I have to do SQL questions. Oh boy, SQL. I have pretty good experience with SQL, but I will say, having to do it live with someone looking over your shoulder, especially if there's like no AI assistance where it can suggest the rest of the query when your brain is like blanking out because you're in an interview and you're under pressure, like that's going to be a little rough. But, depending on how the format goes of the interview, I might be able to like get my way through it. I know SQL pretty well, but, having to produce it in those conditions can be a little bit rough. But yeah, anyway, so I have that interview coming up. Maybe I just have to hear back. And then I did an interview today, which was a round one interview with as another recruiter call with another company. And I won't hear anything back until next week because the hiring manager who would be approving me to talk to them is out of town right now. So I won't hear anything back until probably next Tuesday or longer. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm at a pretty precarious situation in my life financially. If I don't get a job in the next month or so, like if these don't pan out, I'm just going to have to go back to delivering pizzas like I did in college, for a time there. So that's going to be fun. Yeah. Anyway, that's my updates. If you guys have any stories, like I said, please tell me below. I'd love to hear them. If you want to hear a part 2 to this where I talk about all the shitty interview stories I've had, and all that, I'll try to compile a list and I'll get it ready and I'll make a video about it if you guys are interested. If not, oh well, whatever, it's okay. Good luck out there. Good luck to me. Good luck to you. Good luck to everybody. Let's hope that things turn around. Let's see how it goes. Okay. Well, I'll see you guys later. Take care.